Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Triangle Offense. I'm Monish, and as always, I'm joined by Nishant. So, on today's episode, we'll talk about the Western Conference table because they've kind of settled into their spots, and we kind of know what the playoff scenario is going to look like. Uh, Sitting up in front is the Utah Jazz, who surprisingly have lost two consecutive games against the Minnesota Timberwolves. How do you do that? I don't know, but they managed to do that, and they're in trouble. I mean, Phoenix Suns are closing on them.
Yeah.
And it'll be great advantage to be the number one spot because you'll either face the Warriors or you'll face the Grizzlies or even the Trailblazers, whom we'll come to in a bit, and which I want to focus today's episode on. The Phoenix Suns are sitting second, rising sharply.
Yeah.
The Clippers currently, I think, are the favorites. They sit in third spot. They have a tough first round matchup because they're going to face either the Mavs or if the Lakers continue to slip, the Lakers. That's going to be a super fun matchup. And Clippers is going to be fun, whomever they face. I mean, it's either going to be the Trailblazers, Mavs, or the Lakers. So that's going to be a super fun game. In fourth spot, the Denver Nuggets, who actually held on well after losing Jamal Murray. They've been doing pretty well despite the loss.
Right.
So they'll be sitting there and they're ready to face either the Lakers or if the Mavs continue to rise, the Mavs. And that's going to be a fun matchup. The Lakers sit in fifth, Mavs sit in sixth. The Portland Trailblazers slipped to seventh. Now, this is something that I would say they screwed up because they had a great advantage with LeBron and AD sitting out. They had a great opportunity to close in on Denver Nuggets and take that fifth spot. You'd face an easier opponent first. But they did not. Now they're on a 4-0 losing streak. And they've slipped behind the Mavs as well. And with the Grizzlies really catching up on them really fast, that means the first play-in game is going to be the 7th versus 8th spot, which means the Grizzlies take on the Trailblazers. This was a play-in game last season as well. It was a close game. Dame Lillard coming up the winner in that one. But I think the Memphis Grizzlies are the better team right now. What do you think?
Yeah, I think they are. It's Portland all over again. Even last season, they scraped through in the bubble in those play-in games, largely on the merit of Damian Lillard and McCollum also played 40 plus minutes and Lillard played that kind of minutes and that was the concern everyone had. With this much load on your best players, are you sure you can survive a series against the Lakers where they have enough squad depth to push you around and quite frankly they have too much size, which was another problem with the Portland lineup. They find themselves in the same situation again. This time Grizzlies are a lot stronger, if nothing but for another year of experience under their young wings. And I've said this all year, I'd love to see Ja Morant in the playoffs because that's the ultimate test of what you're made of and that'll be interesting. Portland have only themselves to blame. It's not just that the Lakers had AD and LeBron out. Mavs had hit a rough patch. Porzingis came back, didn't quite look like Porzingis. He still doesn't look quite like last season's Porzingis. And that team's all Luka right now. Once in a while, the three shooting gets going and they get going. Otherwise, it's a tough beat. So Portland had multiple opportunities and where they could have not only secured a playoff spot, but a relatively easier opponent. Now, imagine if they had moved up fifth. As things stand, they'd face the Nuggets. Not an easy matchup by any stretch, but it's still a Nuggets team without Jamal Murray. So there's some hope. Versus say playing a full strength Clippers or even the Phoenix Suns for that matter. So yeah, they're in a tough spot. But I think we discussed this earlier about the Trailblazers, which is at some point why are we not talking about the GM? Why is nobody talking about what the franchise is doing? Because with Lillard in his prime, they're exactly where they were last season. Exact same spot, over-reliant on their two guards. Okay, maybe some support in Powell, which was haphazardly added in the last minute, just before the deadline window closed. But that's about it. If anything, they depleted their big man department by moving out Whiteside, preferring Nurkic, which, okay, better offensively, but then Nurkic again gets injured, as always. I mean, he's never had a full fit year, has he, after LeBron dunked on him in that matchup against the Cavs. So it's the same old. Carmelo's a year older. They don't have a big man department. They're again back to square one, over-reliant on Damian Lillard in a play-in game situation. Looking at the Memphis Grizzlies, I mean, that's the definition of stagnation.
We had a potential, over the past weekend, we had these potential playoff matches actually play out. The Trailblazers played the Grizzlies in a 2-match series and they lost both. In fact, they were hammered in one of them. Does that make the Grizzlies favorites for the 7th spot if this game happens? And the Grizzlies are getting back to full strength. Their JJJ, the Jaren Jackson Jr. is back. He's balling it out. Ja Morant is in form.
Yeah.
Valanciunas is actually putting up mini Jokic numbers, I would say.
Yeah.
And they're the team that is trending upside. And for a brief while, I thought the Warriors could take that 8th spot from them, but they've run away. I mean, they're closing towards the 7th spot instead. Do you think they'll start off as the favorites if they play the Trailblazers?
In that matchup, no, because all said and done, this is a team with hardly anyone who's ever been to the playoffs, anyone who's had this kind of winner takes all one match. Although they do get another crack at it, given their ranking, but they don't have too much experience there. And sometimes it's a different animal, a match like that versus a regular season game. I'm not counting them out, but I think it's a young team. Things could go wrong, nerves could hit, chemistry issues, adjustments, what's your plan B, all of these questions that you keep asking in the playoffs of teams. It's an unknown entity. I'd be mighty impressed if they pummel the Trailblazers again. But in these matches, I think history's taught us not to count against Damian Lillard. So that slight edge to the Trailblazers just because of Dame Lillard. But otherwise, this is a mouth-watering matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. The reason I asked you that is the loser of this game would finally end up playing either the San Antonio Spurs or the Golden State Warriors, two teams who are in great run of form. But you wouldn't count out Steph Curry in these matches, would you? I mean, would that mean that Warriors start off as the favorites and then they face either the Grizzlies or the Trailblazers? That's a delicious matchup. I mean, I can't wait for this playing week. It's going to be so much fun.
Yeah. So hold on. So it's Spurs against
the Warriors,
and the losers are knockout, and and the winner gets to play the loser of that match. Okay. So let's run this through. Let's assume Portland win, and it's going to be a tight match. It can go either way, but let's just say Damian Lillard does his thing and Portland win. So then, and let's say Warriors somehow scrape through against the Spurs because the Spurs are the better team, and DeRozan's in spanking good form. Boy, do I know it. But it's Steph Curry, so let's just say they pull through. One match, they do it. Now it's Steph and the Warriors against Morant and the Grizzlies. I don't think I fancy the Warriors in that matchup.
Okay.
And I know I said you don't bet against Damian Lillard in these matches and he'll pull through, then why can't I bank on Steph Curry? Because Damian Lillard doesn't have an atrocious squad around him. He still has...
True.
There's CJ, there's Norman Powell, there's Nurkic if he shows up. Melo can put in a few good minutes here and there.
True.
Covington, great piece on defense, 3-and-D. These guys, Warriors have none of that. Draymond gets a bunch of assists, most of those to Steph Curry. Wiggins is still playing like ass, just numbers here and there, but really nothing to write home about. Kelly Oubre again, great hustle, kind of all over the place results. And the Wiseman, the big guy, is out. So it's a team in shambles. It's not really, it's just Steph Curry. There's nothing else in the Warriors right now. Draymond doesn't even defend like he used to. So I'd probably fancy the Grizzlies in that match. Unless like Steph does his like 14 threes thing or something like that.
Yeah, it's hard to argue against the Grizzlies if they face up against the Warriors. If it was a Trailblazer, I'll actually give the Warriors a chance because it just one night the lights shine brighter and then Steph Curry rises to the occasion. I see that story playing out, and that means the Trailblazers are in real trouble. They might not even make the 8th seed. Looking at last weekend's game, there was also another interesting series. The Mavs took on the Lakers in a 2-game series. The Lakers got pummeled in both of them. What happened there? I mean, Anthony Davis returned looking a shadow of his former self. Troubling? Are you worried as a Lakers fan?
What do you expect? First game back after like 4 or 5 months out. And this is a guy who's had a bunch of injuries in his career. So you hear a lot of these players talk about coming back from injury. And some players go so far as to say, like if it's a big injury, like an Achilles or one of those, that mentally they were never the same again. They wouldn't dare do the same kind of dunks again. They wouldn't dare attempt the kind of aggressive drives to the basket again for fear that they'll trip that injury again. Maybe there's some of that playing on AD's mind. He also didn't play major minutes. He was kind of an in and out minutes restriction game. Can't read too much into that. And without that, it's Lakers against Mavs. You don't really expect Lakers to stand a chance. Without LeBron, AD hardly playing. It's a tough matchup. It's a tough team to beat. The Mavs in general, right? We've been calling them a nightmare playoff matchup for most teams. And they proved that. AD hardly playing, LeBron out. The rest of the players kind of in and out. Drummond still new to the squad. And they got beat. And that'll happen again unless LeBron's back and AD is playing a full game. Now, had that been a fully fit AD playing his usual 32, 36 minutes, that'd be interesting then. I don't think the score would have been as bad as it was, because on both ends of the floor, he can bridge the gap.
Right. So that is a potential second round matchup, isn't
Yeah.
it? If the Mavs get through their first round, that means they could face the Lakers right away in the second round. And that, with LeBron back, I know it's a totally different equation. So I wouldn't count too much. I wouldn't take too much too seriously. The other game that played out was the Phoenix Suns versus the Brooklyn Nets, which is a potential finals matchup if the Phoenix Suns can go all the way.
They're not going to the finals.
On current form, you got to bank them. Well, I know that there's a team that never been to the playoffs, all of that. Chris Paul is amazing. Devin Booker is amazing. Two possible MVP shout-outs to them. Not happening, but I think they deserve a look in.
I don't think they beat Utah if they face off against Utah. I just don't. Unless there are injuries, I don't think they're beating the Jazz. I don't see them beating... Well, Clippers is going to be tight, but I'd still give Clippers the edge. Now, if they choke, that's it. I give up on them entirely for the rest of human history, but otherwise I give Clippers the edge. So, there's legitimate matchups where I don't think Phoenix currently can overcome their opponents. That's why I say that.
All right, so that is not happening. Although I would say that the Phoenix Suns are the most informed team in the Western Conference right now. They beat the Jazz twice earlier this season. They play them this weekend again, upcoming week. It's going to be fun. The Phoenix Suns also play the Clippers this week. That's going to be another preview of what's going to happen in the playoffs. Whereas the Clippers play the Phoenix Suns and also they play the Denver Nuggets. So that's lots of interesting matches to look forward to. Meanwhile, today, before we close out this episode, the Warriors take on the Mavs. Now, that is another possible playoff matchup, and this is nicely playing in before the planes really come through, right? Who would you bank on that one? Steph Curry against Lucas. Let's assume that the Portland Trailblazers make a run and they take the 6th spot back, and Warriors, the Mavs slip to the 7th spot. Now, Luka versus Steph in a one-off game. Who would you?
Luka for sure. So far, Luka all his life he's come up big in clutch games, and he does a lot more to influence the game than Steph Curry. For his team, like respectively, Luka to his team versus Steph Curry to his team. Steph takes on the entire scoring load pretty much, but there's still a lot of other stuff that players do. He relies on certain players to make runs, make reads. Draymond is his chief assister, if that's a thing. Luka does a lot of that by himself, and he sets up other scorers. Luka also can bank on a bunch of 3 shooters that he has. Now, granted, the form has been kind of in and out, but he does have those options that he can bank on. Steph hardly does. Unless Wiggins or someone gets unusually hot on that particular night, it's not something we've seen happen too much. And then there's Porzingis. There's just Porzingis. In a game like that, one game, his defense at the very least, if not his shooting and scoring prowess, I think the Mavs have to. It's their game to lose if they play the Warriors.
All right, that'll be interesting how that plays out. But that's all I have for you in today's episode. Before we close out, any chance the Pelicans can still make a final run at it? They are 3 games behind the Warriors in 11th spot. Any chances?
Both ways, I don't see that happening. I don't see the Warriors letting this slip now. At least them going to the play-in games. I don't think they're going to go for it, the Pelicans. I just don't see that kind of aggression. I don't think they have the ambition to go all the way there.
Well, another opportunity that Adam Silver gives Ryan Williamson, but they don't seem to take it. But like I said, that's all I have for you in today's episode. I'll catch up tomorrow with the Eastern Conference table.
All right, man. Just see you.